New Hampshire Republican Senate candidate Don Bolduc campaigned for months on the false claims that the 2020 election was stolen. But then, after he won the nomination this week, he changed that tune.
I signed a letter with 120 other generals and admirals saying that Trump won the election, and damn it, I stand by my election. I have come to the conclusion, and I want to be definitive on this. The election was not stolen. Was there fraud? Yes. President Biden is the legitimate president of this country.
CNN anchor and chief Washington correspondent Jake Tapper joins us now. Jake, great to see you. How can voters trust what Don Bolduc says, since he changed his position so radically from last month to now, after he says thanks to some research?
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear that a lot of these candidates are embracing Donald Trump's election lies in order to get his support and then win the primaries. You heard the exuberant cheering for him at that Republican debate in New Hampshire from a few weeks ago. But the real question is not just what will voters, for voters in New Hampshire, the real question is not just, well, was he lying then or is he lying now or did he evolve? It's really, if the 2024 election goes to Congress, what would a Senator Bolduc do? Can you trust him to uphold the rule of law? Can you trust him to uphold the U.S. Constitution? Or do you have reason to question that because he embraced Donald Trump's election lies in order to win the primary? Because this is not theoretical. This happened in 2020 and January 2021. And the forces of MAGA are setting the stage to do it again, except successfully, in 2024. That's what's been very clear from the January 6 hearings.
To that point, you sat down with Congresswoman Liz Cheney, J. Michael Luttig, to talk about their concerns about the dangers of these election deniers running for office. This is for your documentary, American Coup. Let's take a look.
A lot of the people we've interviewed have expressed concerns not just about what happened, but what will happen. In fact, we see a whole bunch of election liars running for office. Are you worried?
I'm very worried. The responsibility that we all have to make sure that we defend our republic and that we defend our institutions has to be above politics. There are people running so that they are in a position that they will be able to certify the results only for Donald Trump. That's obviously fundamentally a threat to the survival of the republic, and I think those people have all got to be defeated.
You've been shouting from the rooftops, this is not just about 2020. You're worried about 2024. You're worried about future elections.
I am, and right now, the former president and his allies and supporters, including in Congress and including in the states, represent a clear and present danger to American democracy. That's not because of what they did on January 6th. It's because of what they pledged to do in 2024.
Do you think that Republicans are hearing what you're saying?
I hope they are. There's no evidence that they've heard anything to date.
He hopes they are. No evidence. Jake, tell us more about what we're looking forward to in this documentary.
Well, first of all, before I do, I just want to underline the point. Those are two of the most conservative Republicans in public life today. Congresswoman Liz Cheney and former federal judge J. Michael Luttig, who was on President Bush's shortlist for the U.S. Supreme Court. There is no world in which those two are not conservative. The only reason that they are on the outs in any way with Republicans is because they are standing up for democracy and against these lies. Now, to your point, to your question, Victor and Allison, what we've done is we've taken the elements, the evidence, the testimony from these 9 or so hearings that the January 6th committee has put together, and we've taken it and taken it down to its essence. So the people who have not watched all the hearings, as you and I have, can watch this and say, these are the facts. This is what Donald Trump was doing. The January 6th committee has laid out the comprehensive, complex scheme that Trump and his allies had. Let's look at the evidence here so people can watch it and make up their minds about what they think of what Donald Trump tried to do. But it's all very clear The committee did a great job, and we're just trying to present it in as coherent a fashion as possible.
It looks great, and we can't wait to watch it. Meanwhile, Jake, as you know, former President Trump was on a radio show this week, and he basically said that if he's indicted, there are all sorts of investigations, as you know. If he's indicted, he thinks that it will cause problems like we've never seen in this country. And of course, after January 6th, that's a believable statement. Do you think that the DOJ is using that as part of their calculus?
No. Donald Trump will make whatever threats he makes, and look, he has a very allegiant, obedient core that takes orders from him, whether it's the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers or just mom and pop MAGA supporters from the middle of the country. And there is no question that Donald Trump's threats are carried out by his supporters. That's one of the strategies. One of the things that Congressman Adam Kinzinger says in our documentary is that it's a feature, not a bug, of Trumpism. This idea that he attacks the media, or he attacks a judge, or he attacks a Republican who has the temerity to stand up and say, hey, don't undermine democracy. And those people are besieged with threats. He attacked election workers, et cetera, and their lives can be ruined. Congressman Kinzinger says in the documentary, that's the point of it. It's not just that that happens to happen. That's why Donald Trump does it, and why he uses the language he does. He could, with the January 6th insurrection, he could stop it at any time. He could say, hey, don't do that. I don't want anybody to make death threats. I don't want anybody to go after this person. No, he picks his targets, and he wants them to be afraid of ever standing up to him ever again.
Yeah, which is why that message to the DOJ of, how can I bring down the temperature is so absurd, considering he's one of the people or the leader of raising the temperature across the country. Jake
He's the
Tapper, good to
stove.
see you. Yeah,
He's the stove.
Yeah, he is the stove.